here. Wendy followed up, and Wendy, you asked a great question earlier. Wendy followed up, Owen, because you started going into New Testament writings about hair and whatnot and how it correlates. And I know you said it can get a little dicey from the Old Testament to the New. Wendy said, so women can't have short hair, question mark. And I know she's asking that from a pure heart, really wanted to know, can you help frame for women in the church today and different hairstyles and what have you? I mean, short hair, women, my wife, we just had our fourth child, and she cut her hair to, I think, her shoulders or somewhere, because even women, when they get pregnant now, right, they do the pregnancy cut. I mean, there's all these cultural things. And while long, beautiful hair, some would argue, hey, rock stars, these dudes have some good long hair and it's good. But point being, long hair, feminine, short hair, masculine. Help us understand as Christians today the different styles and really what Paul's point was and how that would correlate to being a man, being a woman. Help us out.
Yeah, you have a lot going on in ancient Corinth. The first thing to say contextually is that ancient Corinth is very similar to our context. It's a hotbed of androgyny. It's a place where there is temple prostitution. It's a place where the sexes will present themselves as the opposite sex in prostitution, in sexual acts. It doesn't even make anybody blush in Corinth. In fact, in the first century world, to Corinthianize someone meant that you changed them from a more traditional virtuous person to a person who indulged in sexual depravity without blushing.
That's Vegas.
It's Vegas, yes. It's New York. It's San Francisco. So we sometimes think, oh, the ancient Bible, how fun, how neat, what an ancient text that has no relevance to our lives. No. Ancient Corinth far outpaces many of our modern cities in its debauchery and its wickedness. And for this point, it's androgyny. Okay, so what we need to note is that it is to exactly that church, to a church we know from 1 Corinthians 6, we're talking about 1 Corinthians 11, but just 5 chapters prior, The Apostle Paul has said that some of these Corinthian Christians were homosexuals. They were sinning against God in all sorts of ways, and now they've been washed and justified. So we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they were losing themselves in depravity, okay? And it's to that church, Costi, this is my point. It's to this church, it's to these men and women that Paul then says in 1 Corinthians 11:15, if a woman has long hair, it is her glory. So what Paul is not saying is that if a woman ages and can't have long hair, she should feel bad about herself. He's not saying that if a woman has chemo treatment or something, she should feel bad about herself. He's not saying anything like that. He is saying, though, mark this, and this is, again, this is not the way 1 Corinthians 11 is usually taught and preached. So to some degree, this may be new to people, but Paul is saying that you should not be androgynous like the folks down at the temple are. Women, you need to present yourself with long hair as much as you can and show that you are a woman to God's glory. Gavin was talking about creational order just a minute ago, creational design. And men, you need to show that you're not a woman and you need to not have long hair. Now, people will always throw up Scotland and kilts or various societies where men have long hair and these sorts of gray area issues. We'll let Scotland be Scotland, okay? Scotland's a great country. Christian Focus is headquartered in Scotland, so I'm not throwing darts at Scotland. The men there are far tougher than I. Actually, my last name is Scottish, so how's that?
There you go.
But let's say this in conclusion. Let's say there are gray areas, okay? But let's say that what God's design is for us to reject androgyny and for men and women, as much as they are able, to present their sex as God made it and to show that men are not women and women are not men. God is glorified in that.
And weren't historically the women there in those contexts as a sign of throwing off their femininity and their womanhood and their subjection to what we would believe is God's order? Wasn't that some of the reaction? It would be, in a way, today, like a woman who is a lesbian who has long hair and goes, I'm going to do a different haircut because that's what lesbians do. She wants to identify with someone who may do that. Or in those eras, you had women that were shaving their head who were prostitutes historically in Corinth and otherwise. They were throwing off their, so no man in Scotland is wearing a kilt saying, I'm going to throw off my manhood. I want to be a woman. It's cultural in that sense. And in the same way, what you're saying is, as women and men who are Christians, we're not to throw off our commands from God or our identity in Christ or the way that we should live. We don't just throw caution to the wind and give in to whatever. We look different, and that.
Yeah, and we actually, as talking about training our sons and daughters, we actually raise our boys to have shorter hair than a woman, and we raise our girls as much as they can to have long hair, and we show them that manhood is good and womanhood is good. Somebody's raised a question about Samson. The Nazirite vow that Samson takes, for example, is actually against the grain of a normal Israelite situation, so it stands out. Actually, Samson proves the rule. It's the exception that proves the rule.
Exception, not the norm. Yep. That makes sense. And so you're not, yeah, that makes really good sense. We're to look like men and look like women to the best of our ability, and we're not trying to avoid what we are.